Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tim Talks. And we are in Tim Talks episode number 2, which is quite good fun. I'm sitting here in a little room talking with Thomas, our wonderful IT teacher guy. And we have decided to do a little bit of a sort of expose of who this weird guy is who mucks around with computers all day. And that's me. And as you can hear from my accent, I'm English. I come from the north of England, a town called Leeds, which sounds big, but by English standards isn't very big. So be very, very careful when comparing. Leeds is a town of about, I've got to think now, probably today about 2.5 million people, which on an English standard is actually not that big. Nice place in the north of England, very industrial part of England. And I would just like to say at this opportunity that the wealth of Britain was not made in the gardens of Kent. It was made on the sweat of people who dug up coal, on the sweat of people who foundried metal, on people who went out and did stuff. That's where I come from. Lovely, lovely people. They really, really are. If you enter their hearts, you will never leave them. And they will move mountains to help you. They will also kick you in the head when you're lying down on a Friday night, but that's a whole other different thing. Be nice to them, they'll be nice to you, and they'll never let you go. So Leeds, northern town, little bit rough, little bit harsh, but kind of nice. So there's Tim, a little Yorkshire boy growing up in Leeds at the age of 12. Quite a good violin player, as it turned out. And so my parents thought, what can we do to help Tim? He's a good violin player. He's got a half-decent head on his shoulders. What can we do? So I went to a boarding school on a music scholarship, as it turned out, because my parents didn't have the money to pay for the whole thing. So I got a scholarship which covered a lot of my school fees. So I'm there at a 13-year-old merrily playing the violin and going away to a boarding school in England. It was fantastic. And at the age of 13, I got to go away with very little parental supervision and do things that teenagers do. And it was great. But if there was a lot of trouble, I was usually around it somewhere. Not in the middle, on the outskirts, which is always the best place to be, people. A moving target is harder to hit. Yeah. Anyway, so that was me, 13, with a very Yorkshire accent, at a school full of very, very wealthy kids. People who had so much money they didn't have to worry about having money. That's the kind of level we're at. And I just wasn't one of them, and I was the poor kid. And that was fine, because I had the violin, and I had a lot of fun.
Can you describe a typical school day?
I can describe a typical school. Yeah, I can. Lessons started at... We all got up at about 6:15, trundled off to have breakfast, which was miles away, I've just got to tell you. So went away, often in our pyjamas because we couldn't bother getting dressed. Came back to house. Lessons started at 8. They went through till 12. Then it was lunch. And then at 1 o'clock, lessons started again till 3 o'clock. In the afternoon, from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, there was some kind of sport. In the wintertime, it was rugby. In the springtime, it was hockey. And in the summertime, it was cricket. And then from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, we would have more lessons. And then 6 o'clock was basically eat, because you're all running around, burning up a lot of energy. So we ate a lot. Back to house, and then it was basically quiet time, what it was called, where you did all your work, your homework, your schoolwork, everything else. And then at 9 o'clock, you were off.
Quite a long school day.
Yeah, and there were Saturdays as well.
Saturday
morning as well, we had from 8 till 12. And then in the afternoon on Saturdays was sport or something.
And you lived in a house with...
We were about... In each house, we would have been about 80 kids, I suppose. So you had a floor with the 13-year-olds, floor with the 14-year-olds, floor with the 15-year-olds, floor with the 16-year-olds. And then, so we all lived in the one house which was a single unit, but part of a greater school.
Yeah.
If you think of Hogwarts and you think of Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, Gryffindor, and the one that I can't remember, it was kind of like that. And you all lived in the houses but had lessons together, of course.
How often did you go home?
Every 4 weeks there was a weekend, and it was called Leave Out, which was a long weekend, and you went home on the Friday night, you came back on the Sunday night, if you could. Lots of people lived so far away that they stayed.
And then what? After boarding school at the age of 13?
18. Oh, after, when I left boarding school, I was 18.
Okay.
So I started 13, 14, 15, 16,
okay.
17, 18 was kind
Yeah.
of the top year. Most people went off to university. I didn't. I decided that's not what I wanted to do at that time. So I went to work in various things, insurance companies and housing offices. Very, very boring. I'm Tim, I'm 18, I have no idea what I want to do. So I just went out and did other stuff.
What about the violin?
Violin, unfortunately, got put on a little bit of a shelf. I still pick it up about once or twice a year.
Mange tak, Tim, fordi du gider at bruge din tid på at fortælle os om dit liv. Inden vi siger helt farvel til Tim, så har han dog lige en ekstra opfordring.
In this strange building that we call a school, there are lots of small people. And if any of the small people have questions that they wish to ask, then throw them at Thomas, throw them at Tim, send us an email, send us a message. We can only produce what we think is good. If you want something that's different, it's your school. You decide. Let us know. That's what we're here for. Let us know what you want us to talk about. And in episode 3 of Tim and Thomas Talk, we will sort it out. And we'll do that.
Perfect.
And whenever you need
Well
me,
said.
give me a shout. Okay? Nice to talk to you.
RG Radio. Radio helt nede for jorden.